BIC podcast number 110. Happy New Year. It is the first official podcast episode of 2025, year of our Lord. Today, alas, we've got good fortune and bad fortune. Good fortune is Eric has realized that in perpetuity literally means in perpetuity. He is trapped forever, contractually. But the sad news is, on a less wonderful note, today is the last, at least for a very long time, Mayo Monday. The Mayo going out on a high. And like the ridiculous organization they are, the New England Patriots hate winners. So they get rid of a man in victory. But we will celebrate the man who coined originally the Mayo Monday for us. That and more on this episode of BIC Podcast. The gazing eyes of Brett Favre, here as always. Eric, this is a bittersweet day. It is a very sad opportunity where, I shall miss the beloved Mayo Monday. What are your thoughts?
Jerod Mayo has been a great team patriot.
Go on.
He has, brought a lot to the franchise. I don't think he was the right choice to be the head coach.
The man has Crushing Chipotle named after him, Eric. There was no other choice.
It sounds good.
I want you to imagine as Eric is talking, because for copyright reasons we can't, but I want you to imagine as Eric is explaining this and giving his side of it, which by the way is wrong, because obviously Jerod Mayo is a hero and should have been New England Patriots coach for life. As a matter of fact, he should take over the Bruins and the Celtics and whatever else you got. The point is, he should be coaching everything. It should be Mayo Monday every Monday for the rest of time. But as Eric explains his incorrect assessment, I want you to imagine Sarah McLachlan, I will remember you.
Yeah.
We can't play it for copyright reasons, but I'm saying imagine for a moment that it was playing while Eric is talking, and that is the vibe we're going for. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. I made it pretty clear I didn't like this choice to begin with. We have it on video that we've brought up in the past of me saying that this wasn't a good idea. The team got worse as the season got longer. They really started the first few games of the year. They actually were very competitive and thought, okay, this maybe, I know this is going to be a rebuilding year, but maybe we'll see some positive things. And they just got worse and worse and worse. Penalty after penalty after penalty, very undisciplined team on the field. Turnover after turnover after turnover after turnover, game after game. They just kept shooting themselves in the foot. And that's coaching. That's not having your team prepared. It doesn't help that, the players are not all that good. They're role players on most other teams. I don't think we have a single star on the team. Not yet, anyway.
Hold on. Paul V, I'm sure he listens to this. He has said Drake May is a shining star. So,
okay. Well, then I don't know how you can say that a rookie is a star when he hasn't really accomplished anything, but I think he has a bright future if things turn around, but I wouldn't call him a star yet. The team is really, really bad, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So I don't think they had much of a choice but to let him go. A lot of people you didn't give him an opportunity to kind of rebuild. It's a rebuilding year. What do you want? Yeah,
what do you want, Eric?
I wasn't.
Sarah McLachlan is playing again, not really for copyright reasons, but in theory, in spirit, is playing.
I wasn't looking for wins per se, and how many wins. You want to see a rebuilding team getting better, and after week 3. You just saw them get worse and pathetic and sad and embarrassing. And that is why he's gone. The win-loss record isn't what you pay attention to during a rebuilding year. It's, do you see this team improving every week? Are they in games late? Are they putting up a good fight? Are they smart? And this team was none of those things. They were just
counterpoint. They won the last game, so they were on a winning streak, Brandon.
Okay.
Like this is testament to Boston failure that you would get rid of a man on a winning streak.
Yeah,
on a winning streak.
Absolutely dumbest thing ever. You had
a win which cost them the number 1 overall pick.
That is 24-25 Patriot-esque. Shoot yourself in the foot whenever possible. And
by winning.
Yeah. We have an opportunity to put our franchise in a good position over the next 5 years and get this rebuilding dumpster fire on track. Oh, no, let's just shoot ourselves in the foot and now put us back 5 more years. No, it's utterly ridiculous.
Brendan, I wish to retort, but please, you first.
I just have one question for Eric, and this is a very 5% more mature, serious question that I need a legitimate answer to.
Okay.
So there's been talk that Mike Vrabel
yes.
should be the target for
yes.
the New England Patriots. Okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Vrabel happens to have been the coach for the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
And I thought that would be a match made in heaven if Vrabel actually just traded places with Jerod Mayo. My question for you is, would you then become a Tennessee Titan super fan? Because you would have Coach Mayo coaching Will Levis, Mr. Smells Like Mayo. And I just think that should be like everything that you've ever dreamed of on one. Their uniforms even kind of look like Mayo.
So real quick, let me respond to your initial conversation. I can only think of one succinct and like pointed response to this that will encapsulate my feelings on this. Not only that, my other thought was, see, Brandon, unfortunately, you didn't give us the suggestion fast enough because I don't care that I'm not an American citizen. It doesn't matter. I would have voted for Mayo Levis 2024. That would have crushed. And now we're in the darkest timeline because you didn't get this to us in time.
Yeah. My apologies, but as soon as I heard the news, I was like, this is perfect. Everybody's talking Vrabel to the Patriots. Let Mayo go to the Titans. That's the perfect scenario.
I hope Jerod gets another chance somewhere in coaching and continues to learn how to be a head coach, because I do think he could do a good job someday. But the way that this team this year was regressing, something had to change. It just didn't work out. Again, I don't care about the wins and losses. They were just regressing every single game, and and at the end, you couldn't even lose when you needed to. You telling me you can lose?
You're so bad you can't lose.
You can lose all those other games, but you couldn't lose one more,
sir, because unlike you and your Boston Bruins and your various attempts to discredit the real three-pointer, Jerod Mayo is not a quitter. He does not quit.
I think
he will fight to the very end. That is why he has All-Pro Mayo named after him. He is Jerod All-Pro Mayo.
He knew he was getting fired, and he wanted to screw the franchise and the fans over.
He's crushing Chipotle somewhere out there.
Fire me. Yeah. Well, enjoy this.
And I bet he didn't even refill the bottle of crushing Chipotle on his way out, Brandon. I bet he didn't. You know what? You don't deserve this.
He probably took the rest of that was in the case with him.
Yeah, you don't deserve this. You're not winners. This
losers.
defeatist attitude. This defeatist attitude is what led you down this path.
This is a
I hope you're all happy.
product. This is not meant for New England.
I don't know.
I'm saying, look, Eric will change his tune when Jerod Mayo finally fulfills his destiny and becomes the next head coach of the Boston Bruins. To victory!
You know something? He probably would do a better job. The Bruins suck.
See?
They're absolutely hard.
Nowhere to go but up, Brandon. Nowhere to go but up. I like it.
They make
Mayo on ice. Mayo on ice.
You know something?
Let's go.
Anything is better than what is going on in that building right now. So
more jokes to come, Brandon. More jokes to come, because I just thought of some wonderful Photoshop that could happen. Some AI generated content may come from this yet. But for now, we shall move on. So it was the last week of the regular season. Disappointing for my Packers. Not a great performance. I wasn't super impressed. I will say this. I'm trying to decide. So Brandon, I'm going to be honest. I do want to do like a watch along. I do want to do a couple of the watch alongs during the playoffs. I did enjoy it. I thought I had a lot of fun with it. I think this Packer one's not going to be very good. Like, I'm just looking at it like, ooh, that's not going to be very good. We're going to see what happens. Although, if the football gods are as vengeful and petty as I hope, I just throwing this out there for the football gods. This Packers team probably isn't going to advance anywhere. However, imagine the city of Philadelphia burning to the ground because the Packers did not beat anyone. It was either with a winning record or a playoff team this year. They were over. And they lost to the lowly Chicago Bears. Although, the Chicago Bears game was a little weird because they sat Josh Jacobs at the half. So they were like not trying to win, but they were still in the game. So they were kind of trying to win. So it was weird. It's where you do this middle ground. Like, realistically, you should just make up your mind. You either play your starters and try to win, get a lead early, and then just be done with it. Or you just sit everybody, and then if you lose, who cares? You're playing your backups and your third string anyway. But if you kind of do like a half measure and then the coaching at the end, technically they still could have won with better clock management at the end. That's how bad it was.
In that punt return thing, like
there was a couple of weird. Well, there was also there were weird there were fumbles where you shouldn't have had it. You almost got Jordan Love hurt. But at the same time, like we've already established, the backup quarterback play is fine. So that's not an issue necessarily. It's actually a nice luxury to have that you've actually got competent backup play. And what happened is they simplified the game plan. And all of a sudden, they were able to rush. But again, it was all over the place. It was very sloppy. Let me just say the game was very sloppy. It was not very fun to watch for anybody. The Bears fans, of course, are going to be thrilled because they won the game for the first time against the Packers since 2018. So they're like, for the love of God, let's just win a game. We don't care what the circumstances are. Let's just win a game. So I get that part. I understand it. But limping into the playoffs in this way, coming off back-to-back losses, is not a great look.
Yeah, the NFC's a little bit more clear, I think, than the AFC. It is weird that your Packers were hot last year going into the playoffs, and when people least expected them to win, they actually won. And you as a fan this year, and the sentiment is that they're probably not going to advance. So it's kind of funny how it's flip-flopped year to year. This is the time of year when, I'll be honest, it's stung the last few seasons because, I mean, let's face it, Lamar set some records, had an amazing season, this time throwing the ball. And the AFC is just so damn tough that I can't sit here and say that even with the team the Ravens have that we're going to advance too far because it's so competitive in the AFC. So I don't want to. We can make predictions, but I don't like predicting my team to win, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I feel like that would be a stinger like Eric had with Boston.
I think that sounds like a situation where you need to go the other way. You need to say lost by 40.
Yeah, I don't. I want to have faith. I want to have the confidence because they look good they looked good, and I want to think that they can go in there and beat whoever they play, but the AFC is tough. Like I really don't know who's going to come out of there. I know a lot of people would probably say Kansas City, but then you have the Bills, you have the Ravens. Like it's going to be tough. So, I mean, hell, look at the Bengals. Burrow leading in passing, Jamar Chase leading in receiving, and they missed the playoffs. Like, that shows you the competitiveness of the AFC.
All right. So one more thing that we'll talk about here. Let me touch on. Actually, let's do silly card of the week. Let's do silly card of the week right now, and then we can talk about. We'll talk about one news story, and then we'll finish up with a couple of cards. I'll showcase a card that I was able to purchase, and then we'll have a little fun with that and talk a couple of small topics. But let's do silly card of the week. So silly card of the week. We want to thank our friends at AMG Collectibles and AMGcollectibles.ca. I'm currently trying to see. I'm playing around with one of the AI softwares, and I want to see if I can basically do the sponsored plug and just let the AI do it. I'm trying to. I've already got the wording on it and everything. Now I'm just trying to make it sound decent. Like, I'll see if I can figure it out. But for now, I'll take care of it. So AMG Collectibles and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel. So this week, I want to quickly make a note for anybody who does watch. This week, there will be a podcast episode. I have gotten some of the cards that came in this week. This week, the new product is Black Diamond Hockey. So the new Black Diamond Hockey is out, I think 24, 25, I believe. So that is the brand new Black Diamond Hockey. I'll talk a little bit more about it on that episode, since that is in the store right now. And then if there's anything else that we want to make sure we touch on, some cool cards that came in the store, there will be no live stream this week. So just letting you know, this drops on the Tuesday. There will be no live stream later on Tuesday because Sherry and the Collector of the Scallops will be on a plane. And probably as we speak, they're flying. They're flying because there is the Upper Deck Conference. There's the Diamond Dealers Conference where they speak on some of the new stuff. So we'll see. So maybe the following week, maybe we'll get them to report back and give us some info on some of the stuff they heard that they were able to speak on. So we'll maybe be able to add that into the episode. But that means there will be no live stream, but there will be a podcast episode. So we will have that episode regardless on the channel. Links in the description to everything. Thank you to AMG for supporting the podcast and the channel. All right. Silly card of the week time. So we got our candidates for this week. We thank everybody for participating, as always, in the only real democracy in this world, which is the silly card of the week. Now, let me give you last week's results. So we had our 3 cards that came in last week. And as part of it, let's see what we got as far as results are concerned. The votes are in. And the votes were that the Mickey Mantle Hangover card was the victor. So again, we don't know 100% sure if it's a real card, but if we hope so, because it'd be a cool story.
It's funny as hell if it's not.
It is. The Biggio Cameraman came in second. So the Hangover card received 58% of the popular vote, a very strong showing for the Hangover card. Yep. And the Biggio Cameraman got a pretty solid showing, 36%. Pretty solid, a little over a third. The Festive Hat, alas, was not there. It was not able to hang in there with such juggernauts this past week. But we thank you for voting as always. So we enjoyed that one. All right. So for the first silly card of the week of 2025, Eric, this one I believe is yours first. So I'll start off with this one. And then if you want to explain kind of what's going on here, you can get into that. So this is from 97-98 Upper Deck, because I know this year I opened packs of this card. This is a Mike Greer, totally related to Will Greer, and I will hear no different.
So, yeah, this is Mike Greer. He has some ties to the New England Patriots. His father was in the front office of the New England Patriots for many years. I think his brother might be in the front office of another NFL team right now. You may think by looking at this that maybe I picked this card because of the angle. The fact that you're basically looking up this guy's nose. Or the fact that he's eating some pepperoni pizza.
I think you were extremely starving when you selected this card.
And, okay, maybe. But I can understand the camera angle. I can understand that you're eating pizza after a game because he's in his full uniform. But no, I picked this because he's wearing his watch. Why is this guy wearing a watch and in full uniform slugging down pizza?
Because it's pizza time.
My only possible guess, it was team picture day. That's the only thing I can come up with. So I don't think that this was a after game shot for the card, he's not pregame and eating pepperoni pizza.
Are you sure? Because that highlight section there seems to indicate he might have gotten into the pizza a little bit much.
Yeah.
Is that a shadow or is that starvation?
I was wondering.
Eric?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
That's a very odd looking shadow. Is all I'm saying. There's a discoloration going on there. There's a lot of things happening here, man.
He probably spilled some of the grease of the pizza on his jersey.
I'm just saying.
I would like to point out, dude has a very tiny wrist for as big as his damn hands are.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting a very awkward perspective here.
He's wearing like a kid's watch, and he's got like these huge hands.
And for a professional sports league locker room, you got drop down panels up there. You got the air vent hanging out. I mean, that just doesn't look like a super classy dressing room.
Eric, he's sitting on a textured couch. Like, I don't think that's any dressing room. There's a clothes hanger in the background. Maybe that looks like a dressing room in my office at work. And by that, I mean a place where you put your jacket here. Put your jacket here.
So anyways, I just, there's so much wrong with this photo. But the watch is what really got my attention. Because why would a guy be in full uniform and wearing a watch?
I need more information on the watch is what I need. I need more information. I got to know. I
also think he went to school at Boston University, I think. So I think there's a lot of Boston connections with Mike Greer.
Wow. You need to teach a class on how to not put pizza on your uniform.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. All right. Moving on. But also, I will say, if this camera angle is accurate, are you saying that Mike Greer is a lefty? Because I wear my watch on the same wrist.
Most people who wear their watch on their right wrist are left-handed, and vice versa.
And he's holding the pizza with his left hand.
So I would say he's a lefty.
Sounds to me like he's a lefty. All right, fair enough. All right, so that's the first selection. Second choice, Bob Melvin, who needs a sign to tell him he's Bob Melvin.
Hamlin.
And apparently, he's also got the name Melvin on the bottom of his brim of his cap, and number 3 because he might forget who he is. Go on.
It's Hamlin.
Or is it Hamlin that it says on there? Okay.
Yeah. This is 96 Pinnacle.
It's so bad, I've decided he's a Melvin. Moving on.
Yeah. No, I found the article on this, which apparently this has been voted the worst baseball card in history, or worst sports card in history.
Whoa.
Given the fact, well, the image speaks for itself. The thing that really intrigued me, though, is this shows, like I've shared one before, the little error correction card. I don't know.
I've seen dead eyes like this before.
And we talked about like the value of it. Would y'all believe that this sells for about $20?
No, I will not believe that.
Yeah.
Or accept it.
Around $20 for a 1996 Pinnacle, Bob Hamlin.
No.
Why?
I because it was voted the worst card in history, but you can confirm. I went on eBay, they're around $18-20. And
well, look, first of all, clearly I have a problem because I thought it was Melvin. Like I literally thought I had convinced myself it was Melvin. Look, does he not look like a Melvin?
The card, so he reminds me of I can't remember the guy's name. It's not it was one of the guys on not Friends. Shoot.
Really? Wow, on comedy.
Or not Seinfeld. I mean, he reminded me of one of the TV actors from one of the sitcoms when I seen the picture. And it was like, I'm curious, like we had all the questions, Eric had all the questions from his card. Was it picture day? Why in the hell is he holding a sign with his name on
it? Maybe he too thought he was a Melvin and got confused, so they gave him a sign to double check.
That was the biggest thing when I seen that. I was like, okay, it's a weird angle. Yeah, he's got his name written in the brim of his hat, but why is he holding the damn sign like he's being booked in prison? Like it looks like a prison photo. You know, he's sitting there for his booking. So okay, anyway,
couple of things here. So first of all, I think, Eric, my favorite unintentional comedy of this whole thing is that I literally looked at this card and convinced myself it was Bob Melvin. That's my favorite thing. My second favorite thing about this is that Brandon is mostly correct. I'm looking at Terapeak right now, and a SGC 9.5 sold for $145 on January the 1st of this year of our Lord. But a raw copy sold for 23 fixed price on December 22nd. Right. Another one sold for $15 on December 17th. And literally all of them say worst card ever in in quotation marks in the title, in the heading. However, Brandon, going back to a theme we've talked about, because people are idiots, someone actually listed this card in auction on January, and it ended on January the 6th, and it sold for $2.75. Those fools needed to go with fixed price to hang with everybody else.
But even still, a 96 pinnacle of a guy that we thought was Melvin. You thought was Melvin. I mean, who is this guy? Even at $2,
Melvin,
even at
Hamlin.
$2,
who is Eric?
I just want to say that I think what I appreciate the most is the dad glasses and the mullet, because he is definitely having a party in the back.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll get to that in a second. Actually, the next
that one is perfect. That worked perfect.
It's going to work. It's going to work.
Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
So there's a reason I made that selection. So before I go though, last thing, Eric is touching on it. Look, I've only seen dead eyes like that one other time on Ray Bork.
Oh,
and to all the viewers, voters, all of you guys, I 100% admit I have no damn clue who this guy was. I've really enjoyed this segment. I've enjoyed looking up and finding the just stupid shit that's out there and sharing it with you guys and hoping you enjoy it. But when I looked this up and seen the prices of it, as Carlos mentioned, $100 and some. Go through your 96 pinnacles.
So it would appear. So look, it sounds to me, Eric, like Harold Baines is equally confused by the situation.
Yeah.
Harold Baines is not a Hall of Famer. Harold Baines. He's confused by the situation.
Yeah.
Not only by the entirety of the ridiculousness of it, but in addition that he's like, Harold Baines here in this photo is saying to himself, he's not Bob Melvin? Damn it. I thought so too. And it's like, I know, Harold. Like, I'm confused by this entire situation. I'm lost. I'm perplexed.
Well, that's Orioles Harold Baines too. Fancy.
That's right. That's right. All I'm saying is, like, it covers it right here, Brandon. Look, it's right here. Like, he's confused. I'm confused. We're all confused.
As it should be. As it should be.
As a people, we are confused. We are perplexed. We are vexed. We are flummoxed.
He's thinking, why is Mike Greer wearing a watch?
Harold Baines is just confused by this entire segment. This entire segment has him perplexed. And correctly so. Now you all know the mid-90s in baseball and the hockey's a confusing time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot going on, man. A lot going on. See, this is why, Brandon, the modern day hobby does not concern me. It does not worry me. Like, I lived through the 90s, man. There's some confusing shit going on. We had Bob Melvins going around, prancing around, pretending they're Hamlins.
Yeah.
Wearing signs, like holding signs.
Like, holy crap. Good Lord. So now you know. Now you know. So those will be included in a community post on the channel. And we thank your participation, as always. And hopefully you enjoy our first silly card of the week of the new year. Sponsored by AMG. Thank you for supporting AMG. All right. So let me touch on this little article here, and then I'll get into one pickup here that will touch on a topic that I think I want to go with. So this one actually came across my attention earlier today on the Discord, but I figured I would talk about it and expand on it a little bit. It's not like a crazy complicated discussion. It's actually touched on something we've talked about in the live stream in the past, but I'll touch on it now since at least it's made an article. I'll include a link to this in the description as well. So here. Leading trading card grader, PSA to grow operations in Canada, Europe, and Japan. So this one here is from NewYorkTimes.com/athletic. So the Athletic kind of co-opted with New York Times. I don't know what the relationship is, but it's NewYorkTimes.com. So that's the main article there. And this is brand new, January 6th. So as I'm recording this, we're to the same day we're recording this. So basically, they did talk to Ryan Hogue, who's the president of PSA, the overall PSA, and talked about it in a recent interview with the Athletic that they're referencing here. So PSA for the past while has had a presence in Atlantic, Canada, and that is where the head office has been. And that's actually where, a friend of the channel, and obviously someone who's been on the live stream as well, Brad Hartland, Eric's personal best friend, has been there, and he has kind of runs the whole show on PSA Canada, which is, as of I guess a year or two ago, officially under the Collectors umbrella. So for people that always forget, Collectors is the parent company. Parent company, PSA is one of the companies and brands underneath the Collectors umbrella. When you talk about Nat Turner is the CEO of Collectors. Ryan Hogue is the president of PSA specifically, and Brad operates in that hierarchy, running the Canadian office, so to speak. So I'll put Canadian office in brackets so that it's as clear, so the hierarchy makes sense. So bottom line is Ryan Hogue was talking as in this interview and discussing the international expansion. PSA Japan opened up in 2023. So that was a fully operational office. Submissions, and they do grading in it. And also they've talked about plans. So here now I'm going to quote from the article now. PSA will open an expanded operation in Canada. So they already had something in Halifax previously, but now they're going to expand it, moving their base to Toronto from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I'll get to more of that in a second. They'll also set up shop in Europe with offices and a submission center in Germany. Thirdly, the company will move into a larger facility in Tokyo after initially setting up operations in Japanese capital in 2023. So expanded operations in Japan, an office in Germany, and then moving the office for the Canadian division from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Toronto, which will make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, which I'll get into in a second. So wouldn't give the timetables here. There's a couple of things that are going to happen as part of that. But the expansion in Tokyo is going to occur within the first 3 months of the year. So there's going to be an expansion in Japan, which obviously is going to be a big deal. They do a lot of TCG, especially Pokemon and all that in Japan. Makes a lot of sense, believe me, on that regard, for sure. And obviously this comes on the heels of a most recent year where, if you checked out gem rate, PSA did over 15 million cards, and there were over 20 million cards graded in total by the major players. So very large industry there. And that actually does a little screenshot there of the gem rate data. So you can see right there on the screen if you're checking it out in the video version. So let's talk about the Canadian expansion specifically, because that's where I am in old Canada. So they had a relatively small office in Nova Scotia. It was established in September of 2023. So time moves quick, because I remember when they first established it and set it up. So they're going to relocate that to outside of Toronto. It's going to be a bigger operation. It's going to actually allow customers to submit cards directly there. So direct submission there. Now, this is the part that's interesting. I'll read it to you, but then I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in a second. We're going to have the technology behind it too. So they have a tailored mobile and web presence with a unique shipping address, so the customers don't have to navigate customs and deal with taxes and all that. Important, and I'll come back to that in a second. I think part of it is shipping time, but also complexity. If you're shipping in country versus having to go across borders, it's easier, it's cheaper. You're not having to pay additional fees. Even if you're going from Toronto to Vancouver and you're shipping to California, you're still having to navigate the customs forms. It can be confusing moving the product in and out of the country versus if you're shipping in country. We'll take care of all that as part of our network. So more about the easing use and cost. So part of the reason for that is they had over a 50% increase year over year in Canada. So I can tell you, obviously being directly aligned and talking with Brad a lot, is that they've had a lot of expansion. Brad has done a lot of participation on the Friday Lives and talked about that in the past. And also with AMG, we've done a couple of things where we've discussed that. We'll see what happens down the road. Bottom line, obviously, I used to do the PSA Canada before they went under the Collectors umbrella. I used to do the PSA Canada with him when he was a bulk submitter. And obviously, they were doing very well as a bulk submitter. But when they went under Collectors, they've been able now to have 2 different iterations where they've done on-site grading at the Toronto Expo, which has been huge. They've gotten a lot of cards in. And they used to get a lot of cards in by submission, and now they get a lot of cards in by submission and a lot of on-site grading. So I can tell you that sector has increased year over year. Every year, they've overshot their goals and been able to justify having on-site grading. We never had on-site grading prior for PSA or any of the major players because they couldn't justify the cost. And considering, Eric can attest to this, the village that they build out there in the Toronto Expo is on par with a lot of other build outs they'll do stateside. So the fact they're able to justify it even once a year is a big deal. And the fact they've been able to do it successfully now 2 times and get a lot of cards in through, there's a lot of cards that will never hit a holder if people can't hand deliver it. So making it available in the biggest market in the country is huge. So for that perspective, it makes a lot of sense to move it. Atlantic, Canada, while it's great in its own way, obviously a lot of people might not feel super comfortable with that. Moving it into the bigger it's like moving it into New York City, basically. You make it into a hub, a lot of stuff comes in, it makes a lot of sense. People can drop it off. I guarantee you there's a lot of partner dealers that work with Brad and that as part of his network that are going to be able to physically drop off a lot of cards into that space, just having it within proximity and being able to physically drop it off. That's going to be a game changer for those folks, especially in the GTA. So any just kind of initial thoughts, and I can add a little color here, but that's the general overview.
I think it's good for PSA's growth in Canada. I think it's better for the customers. I think even a small fact of having it in the Eastern time zone and not the Atlantic time zone helps. I think you'll have more people being able to do business, over the phone or have questions or whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's great. I have some personal concerns, but that's to be discussed offline. But yeah, I think it's great for the PSA business in Canada. I think that if I was a Canadian looking to grade cards, I'd be really, really happy about this, especially about not having to ship it over the border, having those additional costs added, having the additional travel. Is customs going to pick my package, to go through and tear apart, and somehow my stuff's going to get lost or stolen. It's one less thing to worry about, and I think it's really great for the hobby and collectors in Canada.
Mm-hmm. So any thoughts on Brandon before I add some more color?
I mean, obviously having the location in Canada is going to be big with, like you said, the on-site with the expo and everything else. I kind of discussed this before we started and we were talking about this, but I think even bigger could be and I know you're more in tune with the Canadian side and you're in Canada and a lot of the viewers are in Canada, but I think the grading as a whole is a question mark because it keeps rapidly growing. I mean, I was actually trying to go through here to generate, and it looked like 2022 was about 14 million. It looks like, just quick estimate right there. And now we're talking 20 million. So, in 2 years, it's increased 6 million cards. How long does this go? That's a big question mark. But even though we focus mostly on sports and that segment of things, I have said many times, I think TCG will continue growing. And I think with them recognizing that, expanding the Tokyo area, I think that's huge because it hits that market. There is an Asian market for sports cards, but I think having it there in the TCG, not just Pokemon, but the One Piece and all the other stuff that's become popular now, that's going to help continue the growth of it, because when we're talking 20 million, that's not just sports. So, probably half of PSA's number, 40 to 50% of it is TCG. So,
Right,
and then the European market, it sounds like they're going to have an office in Germany. And like we discussed there's so many sports in that area that may not be big here, but have a presence over there. And as a bulk submitter myself, I'm going to tell you, it is a pain in the butt to navigate foreign and international, shipping. Like I used to have a couple people in the UK that would submit with us. I've had people in Korea that submitted with us. I've had people in Canada, and it's just not easy because you do have the customs aspect. The shipping is more expensive. And even with the companies that offer the international, it does become a lot more expensive. So having that there and reducing the cost on the logistics side of it, the safety side of it, where it's not going through customs or across the ocean or whatever, that's going to give more security to the submitters. And overall, we can sit here and say, how big is it going to grow? But the more that they expand into these other areas, the more opportunity it's going to be there for growth. Now, I don't think it's going to help, obviously the companies that don't have the presence. CGC, I think, has some international offices, and obviously PSA is making a presence of it. I don't think you're going to catch those two. Like, I think they have a lock on the markets, but it's good. It's good to see that cards, not just sports cards, but cards in general, are becoming a thing throughout the world, not just, the US or Canada. But my biggest, something that I'm most curious about with the Canadian expansion, do we see a growth in the hockey side of things? Because it's always like, sometimes it's arguably not even the fourth sport. Soccer's overtaken it. F1 got really popular. So with having the presence right there, I'm really curious to see how it expands hockey. So
I think what's going to be interesting, kind of playing into your question, I don't think hockey is going to necessarily get any bigger than it is now. I think it's the biggest differentiator here. And at the end of the day, like I said, I wanted to talk about it because obviously they had done the article and discussed it, and it's something that kind of on the back end of it that I had known about in general terms for a long time now, and it was always kind of a joke with the guys. It's like the worst kept secret of the world. A lot of people kind of like that it was having the office being in Atlanta, Canada made sense because obviously Brad and a lot of the folks that are there are based out of Atlanta, Canada. But in the long run, if you wanted to kind of be I'll use Neo's term here from Star Wars. If you want to be a fully operational Death Star in this marketplace, you got to go to the epicenter. You got to go to the hub. And the Greater Toronto area, like I said, I use the analogy, but it's our big hub. A lot of people are in that market area. So just having access to all those collectors that can physically walk it into that space. So if they got it in their basement and they pull one of 5 or 6 Gretzky rookies they open in 79 and they've got a bunch sitting around and they want to drop it off, they don't want to mail it. So they'll go into an office and drop it off. They can fill in a form and have the process streamlined for them.
Do you think there'll finally be a good selection of O-Pee-Chee Bobby Orr rookies for Eric to pick out?
Ooh, I can only hope we can. Only an expansion of that under the auspices of the great Richard Scott can save us all.
Sorry, Eric, I had to.
Well, Eric was waxing poetic about it. Eric has dreamed in his entire life of getting the O-Pee-Chee Bobby Orr rookie. Well, the minor league rookie anyway. But it's basically one of his life's goals. He would basically give up all of his children and all of his lemon lemons to get one.
Yeah. Got it, because I would have the only one.
So anyway, bottom line is yes, it's good that they'll expand the operation. I think it'll streamline certain things. The big one, and kind of it was alluded to there by the quotes that I read from the article. I'll include a link in the article in the description if you want to read the whole thing. By the way, it also talks about the European expansion with more detail. So if you're curious, it does talk about that as well. It's just smart having a local place for people. People are more comfortable dropping it off physically. That's the reason why the on-site was so successful. People are just more comfortable. Well, if you can drop it off on-site, even if at the end of the day they're going to take it over to the grading offices, but just having it in the system right away without having to worry about the post in between, that single additional removal of that step makes people more comfortable. And let me be clear about this. And this is something you can check out for yourself. International grading this way, the hang up is always, well, I can submit it myself. And it's like, yes, you 100% can. You can get your own Collectors Club account. Yes. And you can submit it yourself, but you will still have to deal with customs. That doesn't go away. The only thing you can do is in this situation is they've streamlined it. They've kind of put the upfront cost there so that to send X number of cars or whatever, this is the cost. By having that upfront and kind of clarified right away and simplified, it reduces some of the friction and some of the extra difficulty, and also they can streamline certain parts of it. What I'll be curious to see is the technology part they're talking about. I think one thing that may be helpful, Brandon, that I would expect, and this is me speculating. This I don't have pinned down, so don't quote me on it as something because I don't have this information in front of me. However, it would not shock me.
Talk slow when I write this down so I can get it on record.
Write it down. So I think one of the things that'll be part of it is that you will have easier access to getting a submission number that you'll be able to then use for tracking purposes. So the same way that if you submit cards right now, you have your order number, and with your order number, you can see where it is on the grading thing. Well, before, you would submit to a bulk grader, and it's like, okay, so how's it? You would literally have to ask them and be like, hey, where is my order based on the overall? And then PSA Canada, once it got to a certain point, it had a spreadsheet, and they would update the spreadsheet to tell you what section you're. So you'd have all these order numbers.
That's what I did with
your submissions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what if you would be given? But what if at the time of submission, Brandon, I tell you, Brandon, your order 123, and here's a link to the website, and you can punch in 123, and it'll tell you where your order is in the grading process.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to call me 14 times to ask.
That's the biggest thing as a bulk submitter, and obviously, Brad, when they were PSA Canada, they had way more than I ever have done, but that's the biggest thing is because you have so many, you become customer service for so many people.
Correct.
You remove PSA as the customer service, and then you fill yourself in there, and you have to answer to all those people. And when I had the website, that was the main focus of having it. Is I'd tell everybody, look, here's the orders, the order update page. Go on there. I'll update it as I see things move along. That way, you know where it's at. But then when my domain expired, I had to go back to the old school way of just, making a post on Facebook or whatever when I seen it. But yeah, that would be a big help because then they could see it right there and it removes the questions.
Yes. So that's why I say when I see in this article, and again, this is coming from the PSA's president, when I see here, they'll have a tailored mobile and web experience.
Mm-hmm.
That suggests to me that they may have access to the portal. If they have access to the portal and can punch in their order number, so to speak. So if you submit the cards and can get an order number right on the spot and go, hey, by the way, here's the link, here's the portal, here's your order number. You can punch in your order number and see what's going on, see what the situation is, and you'll know, when it's going through the process and when it's coming back. And that right there will help. It doesn't mean that people won't call. It doesn't mean people won't write emails. They totally will. Yep. You're never going to eliminate that completely. But for some folks who are more comfortable with the process, it will streamline it. And being able to not have to wait till the expo once a year to do on-site grading. In this case, it won't be on-site grading, but it'll still be submission. Well, you could walk in on a random Thursday and say, hey, guys, I've got this card. I'm thinking of grading it. Can you walk me through the process? And be able to have somebody explain it to you, help you fill in the form, get the information put in, and pay it on the spot, and you're done, and not have to wait for some specific occasion. That's a time saver. And then again, there'll be the folks that submit bulk. There'll be the dealers who are going to submit a bunch of stuff. There'll be the ones who also take their own orders. The third-party submitters there through that, who will also drop in 50, 100 cards at a time and all that. It just streamlines that process. Doesn't mean it won't have its own hiccups along the way, but I could see it streamlining certain things, just simply having the accessibility of a central location that more people are around.
And I wonder if they'll still have on-site at the expo, or if they'll say, why don't you just drive 50 minutes that way?
Yeah, but on-site, it gets done right then and there, though.
Yeah, on-site is you need the physical graders. Right now, based on this, it's a submission location. So it'll be submission for now. The on-site thing has been a success. So for the expo, it's been good. I think, though, it's going to stay fall. Again, this isn't me giving you any definitive because, again, I don't have that kind of, well, I can ask, but I haven't, that isn't a decision that's my decision to make, and I'm not part of that portion of the decision-making process. However, based on the last couple of years and the feedback that I've gotten when I have posed questions to the people who would know, is that they're very happy with the results, and that also plays into the whole expansion. If you're not happy with the results, you're not expanding the office. That'd be kind of a clear, the proof is in the pudding, right? You're not putting more money into it to expand and build out the office if you're not happy with the results you're getting.
Well, I mean, if they've already seen the potential growth 50% year over year, then they know that they're doing that where they are. How much more can they get?
Make it easier. Anything that makes it easier is going to increase your potential to get some of that service done. So that's just it. Like I said, this market right now still has a lot of undiscovered country that they can get. There's at least a couple of more Gretzky rookies, I'm sure, they can get submitted. At least 2 or 3. We'll see what we can do.
Might be 2 or 3 left that aren't graded. Yeah.
It's okay. We'll print a few more for you, Eric. We'll get her done. We'll get her done.
Oh, good.
So the point though is good for them. So hopefully they're successful in that. Like I said, that's why I get to I get to have a little fun, Brandon, with this ones because I get to be cagey. By the way, just so we're clear, I am not an employee of collectors, but I do know people who are. So that allows me then to pose the question and get at least a little bit of information. But I will continue to ask and get more information because now that this has made it out and that the president has stated that publicly and put it out there for people, I'm sure now we'll have an opportunity to find out some more stuff and get more details on the when, the how, and the what, and what that's going to end up looking like. And he did put it outside of Toronto. So outside of Toronto can go in a bunch of different directions. So I'll be curious what that entails specifically. Toronto's pretty hefty real estate. So I'll be curious where they actually intend to put the actual office. That'll be kind of interesting for me.
Mississauga.
I know that place.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'll see. We'll see how things go. But nonetheless, I thought that was interesting and worthwhile. Okay. So one more thing I think we'll touch on real quick. I wanted to have a little bit of fun with this. We had talked about it, and it actually plays into a question that was asked about this past week. And Hockey Card Gong Show actually touched on it. So you know what? We can go in a couple of directions here, Brandon, and I'm open to all of those directions. But let me start off with this item, and then we'll get into it. So real quick, I did actually purchase this a little bit earlier today. The new product, as I said, is Black Diamond. And in Black Diamond, they've got some exquisite cards. So they do have some exquisite in there with Black Diamond. So this was one that I actually came across in one of my saved searches. So I ended up purchasing it. So we got a Mike Modano exquisite material here. This is the gold spectrum version. And this is the number to 5.
Very nice.
Fancy schmancy. Now, what I like here, I like gold spectrum, which means it's going to have a gold foil with the hollow foil. You can tell right from the top here, the logos are in that hollow foil. So in hand, those are going to be pretty shiny, pretty reflective. I like that I want more of this dark blackout jersey. I love the Dallas Star era with the blackout jersey. Big fan of that personally. So that's for me. That was kind of my favorite jersey. If I could have gotten one of the replicas at the time, I would have wanted one. This is what I need somebody to retro. I want the blackout jersey. This was the proper blackout jersey, not the rave jersey. This is the proper black jersey if you're going to do one.
Oh, you don't like that lime green glow in the dark shit?
Listen, we'll get you one. We'll get you one for every day of your life. But for me, I want this one. This is the blackout jersey that I'm looking for. That's a classic. So exquisite material, nice jersey piece on there. Very cool. Out of 5 with the gold. Cool. Now, a couple of directions we can take this. Obviously, it's a fun pickup for me. Great. Awesome. But here's the fun part. So on the back of the card, you have received a trading card with Mike Modano game use hockey memorabilia that has been certified to the Upper Deck companies having been used in an official NHL game. So the verbiage is very explicit in this case. But you know where I'm going with this, Brandon.
Yeah.
So that's been the new, do you want to kind of give us the topic du jour? So in this case, obviously they're being very explicit. Mike Modano, game used in an official NHL game. So they're being very like, this is a piece of the jersey.
Yep.
But we obviously have had a little scandalousness. Do you want to give us a quick rundown and then I'll come right back?
What he's referring to is the nonsense that's been going on. I've been seeing it post after post on Facebook of people taking the material out of their Panini cards and looking at the back of them, which this has been something that's known for a long time. It's not anything new, but it shows the amount, I guess, of newness to a lot of folks in the hobby. Like, and no shame to that. There's a lot of growth, I guess. But to see it post after, like, do you not realize once you've destroyed the card, it doesn't matter if it's an actual piece of that player or not? Like, and in fairness, most of them are really cheap cards. I personally, I've always questioned what the material, like what they were using it from. There's been behind the scenes videos back in the day where they've like shown jerseys like that they've purchased or gotten in from, the game used materials. They've shown bins of the fabric where they've cut them up and stuff. But I've always wondered how they keep it all in line, especially with as many players are out there now. There's new rookies every year. Like, how are you keeping inventory of every single player and making sure that that piece is, and then when the verbiage started getting very, very vague, not from any particular game, season, event, hell, it might not even be from this sport. We don't know. When it started getting to that point, it was like, okay, there's some shenanigans going on. And it was obvious, because that was a pretty specific statement that you have received a piece of Mike Modano game used jersey that was worn in a game. That's very specific. But when they start getting vague and like trying to write it to where in legal terms you can't hold them to anything, there's some shit going on. And a lot of them do it. I personally really like, and I wish they all would do this. I wish they would do it more. I like the MLB authentication stickers that Topps uses on some of their materials, because that gives you a code. You go on, you can verify the game, the day, everything that it was used in, and there is no questions. Now, I guess when you get into that territory, then they're going to say, well, that's going to up the cost of the product, and you're already complaining about how much the product costs, and, yada, yada. The problem with the Panini stuff is that a lot of this shit is like Prism and stuff like that, which is already more expensive for not being anything fancy to begin with. I mean, Prism has sticker autos, and now you're giving us, relics that God knows where the hell they even came from. I love the ones when it's just the team name. They don't even know what the hell player jersey it can't, and it might not have even been a player's jersey. It might have just been a blank, So those are the fun ones, but yeah, don't remove your Modano patch. I've also heard that Upper Deck doesn't specify, so it doesn't do no good, I guess, to remove theirs anyway. But that's been the stupid trend to start 2025, and it's been known for a long time.
Well, the thing is, though, it kind of reiterates. You touched on it. It reiterates that we need to sporadically look. I'll go back and watch old videos sometimes and be like, I've talked about this 47 times.
Yeah.
40s, at least 47 times in different live streams, videos, and this, and I'll repeat myself over and over and over again. And every now and then we'll get the same question again from somebody else. My personal favorite, forget about even the basics. Well, actually, I should say, think about even the basics. My favorite is I'll troll Facebook page. I follow, like I said, an AEW one where I'll key in on it if somebody pulls like a card I might be interested in. So I'm watching for that. But somebody posted one literally the other day, and it was like, "Hey guys, I got this card. Can anyone tell me about it? I can't find anything on it." And it was one of the lenticular cards from one of the recent flagship. It says the year, the brand, and everything on the back of the card. The front of it says the name of the insert. A 5-second Google search would have told you not only what kind of card it is, it would have told you which year and brand it was from, it would have told you which the insert is, and a 5-second, if you had done even a basic Terapeak search, it would have told you basically how much it sells for.
Well,
I can't find anything on it is code for I didn't even try. I just typed this out and took a picture. Please just tell me.
And what's stupid about that is there are so many apps, including Google itself now, eBay, that you can literally just take the picture and it'll tell you what the hell it is.
Yeah.
And instead you took the picture, posted it, and wrote a freaking book asking for help, when the likelihood is if you just snapped a picture of it, it would have identified the card for you.
Yeah. That's why I can't take it for granted that people will even do basic research, because they've already proven they won't. So real quick, I wanted to touch on this one. I have so this card. Yeah, rule number 1, yes. So I want to touch on this one. This is a recent card that came in. I showed it already. So this was the Flexures autographs from the Ingrained. Now, I'm going to read the verbiage on the back of this one. So there's verbiage on the back of this one as well. So this one here, you've received a trading card. So this one is a piece of the stick. So on the back here, it says, you've received a trading card with a game-used hockey memorabilia and an autograph of Mike Modano. So the key here is the verbiage is explicitly saying game-used hockey memorabilia and an autograph of Mike Modano. You're saying both of these things. First line. Second line. The memorabilia has been certified to the Upper Deck Company as having been used in an official NHL game. So again, official NHL game. So that's second line. And the autograph was signed in the presence of a representative of Upper Deck cards or provided and certified to his authenticity by Mike Modano. So again, you've used his name and you've again explicitly stated. So you're literally going the other way. You're beating this into the ground here on the back of the verbiage. Yeah, the rest is we hope you enjoy the history, this piece of history, blah, blah, blah. So you did the player's name twice. You did game used. You did memorabilia, in an official NHL game. That is all on the back of this card. A little paragraph written in there. So that's very explicit. That's opposite of not necessarily using any specific game, event, all that stuff. So at the part that amused me, so a couple angles we could take on this. Let me elaborate here and then I'll pose a question. So you talked about how it's become more and more vague. It's to cover your legal angles on this to make sure that if somebody questions it, you could be like, well, we didn't say it was for any specific event or game or whatever. But I guess my question is twofold. I thought it was amusing and illustrative, and it kind of goes back to what we just talked about a second ago. The Gong Show guys include two guys that are a little bit newer to the hobby, or at least coming back to the hobby. I forget what the specific history is with Troy. I always forget which is which, but I think Troy and then Baba Louie. So two of the hosts there. And then Phil is supposed to kind of represent the longer-term collector there. All three of them expressed varying levels of shock over this, which is to say that a lot of people have kind of buried their head in the sand and lived in ignorance of this, because this is if you're in for a while, this is the most, this debate is now a couple of decades old. Like, it's been going on for a while. This is not a brand new one. This is not even a pandemic one. This predates pandemic by quite a bit, actually. So it isn't a new conversation. But I guess my question is as follows. If the verbiage is like that, then the question always is like, well, wouldn't you pay more for a real game used piece? Well, first of all, I cannot possibly know it's a real game used piece unless I'm physically there when they extract the game used and put it on the card. Unless I am physically there to prove, even if you say all the things that you just said and you were explicit, and both of those, Eric, I think are good examples of being very explicit. You said the player's name. You said game used. You said official NHL game. Like, you're going out of your way to be like, no, like really, 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 exclamation point. Opposite to what the Panini verbiage is. The Panini verbiage is very generic, very open-ended, very could be anything, even a boat, like anything. Go ahead.
One of the things I also look at in the situation is, let's pretend that the card company and all of its employees really do care. We're going to pretend, okay? And they want that game used piece from that player in that player's card, and this is important to them. And they spend a lot of time designing and planning and doing all the work so we can get the product that we deserve with our hard-earned money. The problem is the printing companies and the people who are putting all these together and inserting, pieces of cloth, they don't care. They're not, specifically fans of cards, the sport, whatever. Their job is to put this thing together, stick some material in there, and ship it down the assembly line. A lot of these things are probably done outside of first world countries, possibly, where you have people getting paid very, very little in bad working conditions to slap all these things together. They don't care if this little piece of material really came from the athlete that's on the card. They need to just get this out and done so they can make their very, very small wage for the day. And, if this stuff was all done in-house at the Upper Deck headquarters with passionate fans that, that were, really into, say, because there's Upper Deck, I said, all into hockey cards, and this means something to them, and they're getting a living wage, you'd have a better shot at it.
So I don't know for 100% fact. So if I am incorrect, I apologize. But I don't believe that the printing companies are actually the ones that put the patches inside the cards. I think they may just print them, and because the cards are like assembled at that point, they're not double-sided. They're like pieces, and then they're
Yeah, the
assembled.
memorabilia parts are generally layers. They're usually
Yeah.
layers.
So I don't know that that's done at the printing facility. Like, I don't think they're deciding which patch pieces are going in the cards and stuff, and then sending them
Well, that's
that
something
way to Upper
I'll
Deck.
ask Billy about then next time we have Billy available with working internet. So never.
I was gonna say, like, it's like you've set us up for failure, Eric. You've set us up for failure.
I mean, I'd like to find out exactly how that's done then. So you're telling me possibly the pictures are printed, the backs are printed, they're not glued together, they're sent back to California to Upper Deck, and they got an area at Upper Deck headquarters where they're putting the piece of material in and gluing them together there in the back of Upper Deck. That's what we don't know. You said you don't.
I don't know for certain, but I don't think the printing company is doing
I want to know.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I've seen shots of cards, and it may not have been Upper Deck, but where they were sent to the players to sign, and they hadn't actually had the material added to them yet. They were supposed to be like patch autos, and the patches weren't actually in the cards yet.
Yeah, so I'll put in the inquiry. I'll put in the inquiry just to follow up on this.
We should see if we can get him to come by on Friday and have a talk and explain what the process is.
Yeah, we'll put in some feelers out and see if we can get a little bit of
back to the original discussion there. And you mentioned like the game use thing and that sort of thing. The part that again, not just the pulling the relic pieces out and realizing it's not even the player that's on the card whose piece it was. Go back many, many, many years to back when they started doing these cards, the memorabilia cards, and there was the pictures come out of I can't remember the running back. I don't think it was Mark Ingram. There was a picture that came out of the player with like 100 jerseys on or whatever.
Yes,
yeah.
I remember.
I can't remember which. I think it was a Saints running back, but for some reason I'm thinking Ingram, but I don't think.
And the point and the controversy at the time, because again, just to reiterate, in the hobby, everything's a controversy, everything's an argument, everything is a complaint. At the time, it was the concept of player worn, photo shoot worn, and that was the kind of inquiry.
And that's always been like this question of, does it even matter? Because it could be the 30th jersey he had on and he wasn't touching it. Somebody was like slapping that thing on him, and he had layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. So the memorabilia stuff, I think, is always just, if it's not game use, if it's not specified game use to that specific player on the card, to me, it's always just been a novelty piece. It might make the card look a little bit better. Outside of that, if the guy wore it and it was the 32nd jersey, 32nd layer he had on, who the hell cares, right? And at that point, does it matter if, Jason Robertson wore it or Tyler Sagan? Because likely it didn't touch either one of them. They just
it matters if Jason Robertson wore it, Brandon. Don't lie.
Yeah,
it matters.
In fairness, because I actually got this out just to look at the wording on it. I have to give Upper Deck credit because the ones you read have been very descriptive. And on this, they actually put, this is not game worn, player worn, but it says as having been worn by the featured player. So it's saying, yes, this was worn by Robertson. But here's a bigger issue that has always stumped me. We're talking, go back to Panini or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The big cards for Panini have been the NTRPAs. They're player worn. They're not game used material. And those rookies of guys have, like, the Luca has sold in the million, over $1 million. Why the hell does it matter? And let's go with Upper Deck, the cup. This is player worn. It's not game used. So it does make me question why the top products, the cards that have been deemed the highest value, most important for the players, their rookie cards, their RPAs, whatever, most all of them are player worn material. It's not game used. And to me, game use has more significance. They, as it says, they use it in the game. They partook in the sport, the activity, and it was used. It wasn't them standing at a photo shoot, having something on for 2 seconds. And again, might be exaggerating, but 30-second layer. There's nothing important with that. Like it literally means nothing.
Okay. So, now, can I pose a question? Can I pose a question based on what you just said? So let me take two different angles on this. That's why I said it was a little open-ended, and I figured, Eric, we could have a little fun with this because there's a couple angles we can take on this. So first angle, playing off of one of your points. First angle, in the examples I gave, Upper Deck was very explicit.
Mm-hmm.
They repeatedly said the player's name. They said official NHL game. They said game use. They said all these words as part of the blurb on the back of the card.
Right.
In some cases, multiple times to like really put an emphasis on it. Okay, great. Okay, so here's my first question. When it comes to the Panini one where they're being super vague, one of the questions, and like I said, one of the fun parts about for me watching that Gong Show episode was the shock. The oh my God, my innocence, my virgin eyes have been ruined. To something that's been going on for a while. But what I thought was amusing about it was that, well, when Panini does that, though, here's the question. To your kind of playing into your point, you care more about the game use as opposed to the photo shoot worn, as opposed to all these other categories. Fair enough. Makes sense to me.
Before you go, just to step in, I am cool if it has a nice patch in it and it makes the card appearance better. I'm not a snob that it must be game used, but it is, to me, nicer if it was game used.
But would you agree with the statement that all other things being equal, that would hold more weight and potentially more value with you? If it is a game use, yes, game use piece. Hell, if we could even identify it to the game, yes, this all other things being equal, RPA, photo shoot worn, RPA game used in an official NHL game.
Yes.
One would hold more weight than the other.
Yes.
So that's all I'm getting at there. So my question is as follows. So with the Panini ones being so vague, again, if you're ignorant of it, you're ignorant of it. You don't understand it, that's fine. But I think depending on the person you are, I think some people then have already adjusted the price of some of those Panini cards accordingly. Where it's super vague and left open-ended, it's the same thing as the manufactured patch. It says manufactured patch right on the back of it. It might look really cool, but it's still a manufactured patch. It doesn't matter that it's a manufactured patch. So in turn, we value it less. And as a result, the sale price is also less. You could have it autographed and all that, but it's still a manufactured patch. Like, doesn't matter. It's manufactured, guys. So it's worth less.
This is there you go. We were talking about earlier.
Yeah, is that Mark Ingram?
Yes, I believe it is. So
I couldn't remember if it was him or not, but
notice this is at a Topps booth. Okay. Yeah. And now they can take these all off and say that these were player worn.
And they also had him using the numbers that he didn't even wear because you can get more patches out of that.
Yeah, 88 is the best one because then 88 you maximize the amount of patch coverage.
Yeah,
is
so
one of the ones they use.
He didn't wear 80 as far as I know.
Yeah, no, he was a running back. He was like 22 or something.
I just here's my question. That, and the fact that it's at a Topps event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so the companies are behind this nonsense.
Yeah. Now here's the question. So I wanted to cover that first piece. Now let's circle back. Game worn. And for this one, I'm going to credit Carvin Chung, the architect, creator of Exquisite in the Cup and such. Had him on for the one of the most recent episodes. Had him on for the, I think it was the New Year's Eve episode. New Year's Eve episode, he came on for a bit there. A fun conversation. It got
Are
a
you
little
going to go
extra
into
spicy.
game one versus game used?
So no, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about game used. I'm going to talk about game used versus game used. I'm going to touch on this. Game used. Just so we're clear. And this is a conversation Carmen and I had a while back. I want to say it was part of the two main conversations that I had with him back on the channel, but I'm not 100% sure. But for the sake of conversation, but we've definitely had this discussion. And he posed the question, which was a valid one. So I'll pose the question to you. If on the back of it, same way that Upper Deck was very explicit, if on the back of the card it says, this player wore this uniform, this is a game used piece of jersey that this player wore. So we'll even put their name on it. We'll use certification. We'll do all of that. In the examples I gave you, I said official NHL game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's two ways I can play this. First way is I don't say official NHL game. What if he wore this uniform during a charity game? He got on the ice, he skated, he wore the jersey, he wore it, played in a game, an official game worn. That's game worn.
To be honest with you, that's still better to me. That still holds more
that's
weight.
Fine. I'm just asking. I'm getting the nuances here. I'm trying to clarify the position. Second question. I still write official NHL game. Preseason are official NHL games. You're a NHL player playing against an NHL team, but this is a preseason NHL game. We still good? We still good calling it a game used in an official NHL game?
Yeah, the player used it.
That's what I'm getting at. So there are still, so the funny thing, the irony here, Eric, is that there are still ways that as a manufacturer, you could truthfully state this player wore this jersey in an official NHL game, and you'd be 100% true. Nobody could argue it.
This is obviously on a different level than an ultra modern or a rookie guy or whatever, but my Babe Ruth game used relic that I have, it has I think 2 pieces in it. When I bought that, I knew it wasn't Yankee. I knew it wasn't Yankee material. And what they apparently did, because obviously to obtain, and they did do it back in the day. I can't remember if it was his daughter or wife or whatever. I believe it was Don Russ obtained a Yankee Ruth jersey to use in cards. But the ones that you mainly see of him are barnstorming days. And
exactly.
Yeah. Now, is that a Yankee jersey? Would it be cooler if it had the pinstripe? Yes, obviously, sure. But I still felt it was pretty damn awesome to have something Ruth wore, whether it was backyard baseball or whatever. He wore it, used it in a game. So to your point, it's not as significant as dating it. Like I mentioned, the Topps or the MLB authentication stuff, where you could go to that specific game and know the player stats and everything. I think those, when you can pick it out of when specifically it was used, those are top tier. But game used overall, I still think, we can't say, we'll never know without specifics what they were used in. So as long as it was actually used in a game of some sort, I'm okay with that. It's the player worn shit when you see that kind of stuff and you know that it was just done to slap a piece of fabric in the card. Another one I see that comes up a lot of times, which I think they're cool as hell, is you'll see somebody pull a card and it'll have a patch and it'll have ink on it. And the people will flip out like, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. And they don't understand the company, the manufacturer at some point purchased a game used jersey that had been signed by the player that hit an auction house or something. And they cut it up and it's actually part of the player's autograph on there. I've seen ones that had the PSA DNA stickers still on it. They cut it out, put it on the patch. So those are kind of cool. But yeah, I just don't like the player worn shit. And it's gotten so vague with the legal jargon on it that, the joke is it could even be a boat, like you said earlier. You don't know what the hell it came from. And most of the time they're not valuable cards anyway, but there's some stuff that people are paying insane amounts for and just have no clue.
Yep, no, that's fair. That's the reason why I wanted to get that distinction from you, is because again, if they really wanted to do this, and it would be up to Upper Deck in this case. For hockey, it would be up to Upper Deck. Fanatics could probably play this game if they really wanted to, but if it became more of a right now, Panini has proven that you can get away with it. Like they really have. They've proven you can get away with it by being supremely vague, and people still buy it, and they'll still pay good money for it. But if it ever became a thing, and that's the only reason I asked the question a little earlier about the whole preseason thing and all that, because if you were Upper Deck and you have the relationship with NHL, and it ever became a thing where you're like, oh my God, listen, Eric's been bugging us nonstop. He demands that all of his game used Boston Bruins thing be game worn. Okay. You could go to the preseason and say, like, guys, just do us a solid. Every period, swap out the uniform every period. That way, each game, you're getting 3 uniforms, 3 full sets for the entire team. And then for the entirety of the preseason, you have them all do 3 uniforms per game. Then you've got a whole stack ready to go for the season.
Well, there's already a lot of shenanigans going on, and I'm not going to sit here and, trash the Fanatics overlords, but
better not.
Be careful with the Fanatics overlord. Be careful.
Remember when Neo shared I can't remember what player it was. Was it Vlad, the lineup card that he got?
Yes, the 1 of 1. Yeah, the 1 of 1.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't care for them. That's another one of the gimmicks, because I actually found that there was a site you could go to and buy the lineup cards, but you had to be on your toes, because some of the lineup cards they were selling were in essence replicas, but they had marked them exactly like the official lineup cards. And that was very concerning to me, because there was a lot of, and this was, I can't remember if it was a Fanatics auction thing or a MLB one, but there was a lot of the replica ones on there, and they were marking them identical to how the game used ones were. And it got me thinking there, well, you're just cutting out a guy's name and slapping it in a little window and saying that this was a game used lineup card. Well, first of all, there's multiple lineup cards in the game anyway, because you got home team, opposing team, and then I think even the umpire has a card or something too. But there's just a lot of shit that's going on right now. Like, here's another example. This was on eBay and it caught my attention. Michael Taylor. And the listing said team issue batting helmet, and it has the MLB and Fanatic sticker on the back of it. Right there.
Second. Let me zoom in here. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's, I don't know. There's the Fanatics and the MLB one.
It's there.
The problem is, this was never used in a game. It was issued, which that's what the listing title said, team issue. But people were seeing this, and I'm sorry. I love collecting Michael Taylor. I have game used cleats, I have a game used bat, and all of that. But I would not spend $280 on something that was never used. Like, it literally just was issued. And I'm assuming someone must, because there was pictures that made it look like he was wearing it in a game in the listing. So I'm assuming someone didn't pay attention to the certain numbers and everything, but he did not play in the game that it was issued for. I went and checked the box score. He didn't even play in the game. So it was never used. So that kind of stuff, I have no use for it. Like, I would have added it to my collection if it was game used. I probably still wouldn't have paid $280 for it, but people just aren't paying attention. And again, maybe it's newness. Maybe it's just not being aware of the tactics that are being taken. But there's a lot of trash. And I mean, I hate to be blunt about it, but there's a lot of trash being put out there.
I guess the question, though, really comes down to, let me kind of pose this question to kind of close off this discussion. And we can always revisit this again if we need to down the road. But I thought it was a worthy topic since it did come up. And again, that car was like a perfect example. When I saw the back of it, the way it was written, I thought we could have a little bit of fun with it. Because again, Upper Deck is trying to beat you over the head. No, you don't understand. Game used an official NHL game, damn it. But like I just said a moment ago, you could get around that.
Mm-hmm.
You could say those things and still be truthful. And still kind of, there are ways around these things if you really want to get really kooky. But
I would love to see all game used have the the identifier that we can literally see when it was used. We can tie it to the statistics, a moment, all of that stuff. I know they would say it would cost too much money to do that, but I think for already what stuff's costing, the collector base kind of deserves it. And it would make the stuff more legitimate. So that's just my opinion. I know it'll never happen, but I would love to see from all of the sports, I would love to see authentication that we can tie it, to specifics.
Yeah, well, basically what you're talking about is provenance. It's it's the more details and the more you know the chain of custody and everything, that's provenance. Okay, fair enough. So I guess my question then is kind of a final thought on this for now is, for a lot of the material, and a lot of it, you don't have that level of clarity. You just don't. Now, again, we don't pay as much for some of those. Again, there are outliers. Like you could give me, but this Luca, I understand that. But I'm just speaking in generalities. Because we've got so many now, like a lot of game uses have become ubiquitous. A lot of those cars that are getting torn up are like $5 cars or $2 cars. The reason for that is because they become so commonplace that people don't value them that much anyway. So they're not really caring that much. So because they're not paying that much, in turn, at a certain point, Brandon, if we bring the price down far enough, at that point, it's like, is ignorance bliss? Because the wording on the back isn't promising you game used from a specific game or whatever. It's just general term. But then it's like 15 or $20. Are you caring that much beyond that point if you're not paying top dollar for it?
To be honest with you, memorabilia, we all know, came in. It was something to add uniqueness. It was something to add a chase, excitement.
And originally, it was very tough to pull.
Right. Some of this stuff, and the stuff that we're seeing most of the people pulling out and, oh, look at this. That's why, like I said, I wasn't trying to be harsh, but it's gotten to where it's...
Oh, you were trying to be super harsh. Trash. I saw it in your eyes. I saw the harshness.
It's to say there's a hit. And Upper Deck even does it sometimes in flagship. I don't know if they've done it the past couple of years, but they would put just the solid little piece, and it might be a hit in the box. And
well, the irony, Brandon, so just taking what you're talking about there, it's gotten so far that flagship now doesn't have any memorabilia.
Yeah,
it became so ubiquitous. It became so ubiquitous and it became so common that they sat there going like, well, you guys don't value the game used as a hit anyway. Right. So why bother adding any additional expense, even bothering with it when you don't care about it anyway? You may as well just take it out.
And I think that's another reason why Panini, outside of being lazy and maybe, quality going down or whatever, it's easier. They know that it's not that significant. They know that solid color 1x1 or whatever it is, 1/2 inch piece of material in a card is not important. They know it's just a way to say, here, it's a participation trophy. That's what it is. They are participation trophies. They are pretend hits to just say, hey, here's your hit. And people can't bitch about it. We put something in there, you got it, and to be quite honest, it's gotten to where everything is so watered down that what once was special has become irrelevant.
Eric, that sounded like a scorching hot take.
Go away from the cloth, the material. Do you really care if you get a piece of wood in a card? And whether or not
Eric always wants to get wood.
You know what I'm talking about, though. Not the sticks like that. I'm talking.
I think that's exactly, Brandon. I see you twisting the knife there. I see you.
The little sliver of freaking bat that was like the 400th layer that they slithered off. Very, very thin, tiny bat piece. Who the hell cares? Like, I can't stand the bat cards. The stick cards are cool. The stick cards are cool. The bat
I love
cards,
that. I love that right at
stupid.
the desk. I got 2.
The little bat sliver pieces, nobody cares. I don't even care about them on the old vintage players. Like the Babe Ruth bat. Who the hell cares? I didn't see the light of day until they cut the bat. Like, it was just it. Ruth didn't touch it. The ball didn't touch it. Nothing touched it until the saw cut that sliver out of the bat.
Scandalous, Eric. This scorching. Look, I got to be honest, Brandon. Editing Carlos might just put a burning Elmo meme on the corner. Like, during this entire bit, like the burning Elmo meme might be like in full force. Like, dang,
they're participation trophies. I mean, let's just be real about it.
I love Eric. This last segment makes me so happy. It really does. It was, wow, chef's kiss, glorious. That's beautiful, beautiful thing. I don't think we can add much more. We'll touch on a few other topics later on. There were a couple of other things that I heard this week that I would love to expand on. I think we've done some fine work here. I will include a link to the PSA article if you guys are interested in reading up a little bit more on that, if you're curious about it. Otherwise, then we'll touch on a few other things. I did hear some other stuff this week that I want to touch on a little bit later, but we can save some of that for the following episode. So, first episode of 2025 in the can. So we've got that done. Brand new year. And then as Brandon at Bobbles and Ball Cards did state, we shall continue the podcast because I'm still here and Eric is contractually obligated in perpetuity. In perpetuity.
Whatever.
We'll get you a participation trophy, Eric.
Okay.
Ooh.
Amazing.
I need one of those.
Amazing. Listen, there's still hope for you and the 66 O-Peachy Bobby Orr yet. Wow. Chef's kiss.
The old peachy.
That looks like a top.
It's
So
in a
that's
book.
fake. It's fake.
It's in a book.
Anyway.
It's gotta be true.
Anyway, so that's it for us. Brandon, Bobbles, and Ball Cards. And was 540 flips all along? Mystery solved. Scandalous. Truly scandalous. All of Eric's investigation work, and he couldn't even figure it out until it was revealed.
Yeah.
People are mean.
Other hot tips can be given to Sanderson Door. Also, your negative feedback, Sanderson Door. On Instagram, you can check that out. And we thank AMG Collectibles, for supporting and sponsoring the channel and the podcast. This drops on Tuesdays every week. So now you know. If you didn't know there was a podcast, now you know. Some people didn't know, Brandon. Now they know. There's a podcast every week. It drops on Tuesdays, and sometimes you'll get scorching hot takes, like participation trophies.
It's been a while since I've had. I mean, last week I got heated about the Looney Tunes, but my hot takes, I've kept them kind of under wraps for a bit. This one, participation trophies. Just call it like
Eric, new year, new us. Scorching hot takes.
Scorching.
My goodness. On the last Mayo Monday for some time. We can only cross our fingers and hope. Dare we live the dream, but maybe we'll get another Mayo Monday down the road. But that's it for us. We'll be back on the following episodes, and we'll talk about the rest of the football playoffs and some additional things because, like I said, the people out there in the sports card YouTube world and the sports card world in general, they always give us a little something to talk about. So we'll see what happens. So new year, new us, and we'll make that happen. Thank you, everybody, for checking this one out on the YouTube. If you could like the video, that is always appreciated. If you have any comments or thoughts, feel free to throw them in the comments section. We appreciate the engagement on that. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will catch you in the next one.